Bill O'Reilly, in his Talking Points memo on his show last night on the issue of foreign policy, had two really telling moments that highlight what I think is a key difference between the left and the right. Let's watch.
The trust factor. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. It is quite clear that Israel does not trust President Obama to make a deal with Iran that protects the world from nuclear weapons. It's also apparent that many Republicans, perhaps most, do not trust the president's leadership on just about every issue. And finally, U.S. allies in Europe and around the world are not exactly rallying to Mr. Obama's call for a coalition to fight ISIS and the jihadis. Charles Krauthammer believes our allies don't trust President Obama to do what's necessary to defeat the jihad, so they're reluctant to step up with more than token assistance. The world is a dangerous, nasty place. Villains are running wild. Putin's a menace. ISIS, al-qaeda, other jihadis are simply savages with no agenda other than destruction. North Korea is run by a loon. The Chinese are quietly plotting to dominate South Asia. If America ever needed a true leader, it is now. But trust in President Obama is almost rock bottom. The reason? Mr. Obama's not a terror warrior, not a person comfortable with confrontation. Also, he's a man of the left who sees gray, not black and white. Generally speaking, liberal America does not want to right wrongs overseas, preferring to concentrate on social justice and income redistribution here in the USA. Mr. Obama relishes that, but does not want to police the world.
There's so many parts of that are so interesting. Let's start with the last part. Mr. Obama does not want to police the world. He says it as if it's like a given that any president in America should want to police the world. The guy seems genuinely oblivious to the fact that ever since we have been so-called running the world post-World War II, we've done tremendous damage all over the place. Maybe a handful of good things, but much more damage. And we've created more problems than we've solved, and we've created more terrorism than we've gotten rid of. But he's oblivious because Bill O'Reilly is a simpleton. He's a myopic fool where he can't view things through the eyes of anybody else. He can't step outside of himself and think about things from various different angles. He only sees it through the America is a wonderful angle. We should want to police the world because we're the best and that's where we rightfully belong. I mean, that says so much right there because of how casually he says it, too. Like, as if he doesn't need to provide an argument, right? Like, well, obviously everybody agrees we should run the world. I mean, isn't that a given? Don't all rational people believe that? Absolutely not. If you look at most of the polls, the American people are normal sentiment is stay out of everybody's business. Only, do war when it's absolutely necessary to defend the country. That's the natural sentiment, not this idea of the benevolent imperialist country, because that's a historical fiction. No imperialist country throughout human history has been truly altruistic. That would be absurd. And we know that's not the case with America. So that was really telling. Then also, did you notice the part in the middle there? He says, well, Obama doesn't see the world as black and white. He sees it as gray. And again, he says that, in a condescending way, as if it has a negative connotation to it. Like, well, clearly the world is black and white. It's not shades of gray. How sad is that? That he makes that argument, and again, he's just assuming that, like, everybody agrees with him that the world is black and white. No, it's not black and white, you idiot! You know what he's doing there? He's giving a wet, sloppy blowjob to oversimplifications. I mean, that's what he is. That's what O'Reilly embodies, is this world that's just like that. Like, he's living in a superhero comic or something where he's Superman or he's Batman and he's fighting the bad guys, and that's how it works. And Papa Bear O'Reilly's going to come through. He's going to face adversity, and he's going to win because he deserves to win because he's the good person. He's the virtuous person. And the irony is Bill O'Reilly's nowhere near that. I mean, he's the guy he's never met a war he didn't like. Any war, anytime he was a war, I'm in. Let's do it. This is the fucking idiot who argued about a year and a half or 2 years ago that we should get involved in Syria to topple Assad. A year later, he advocated getting involved in the same war on the other side. He went from saying, we need to go into Syria and get this guy Assad. Yes, that's what we need to do. And then a year later, he's like, we need to go into Syria and get ISIS. You idiot. Do you even realize that you just flip sides in the conflict? You don't even realize that, do you? You don't even realize that you just flip sides in a fucking conflict and had strong opinions both times. Totally contradictory. I can't believe anybody still watches this guy. Well, I do see why people watch him, because he's entertaining. He's a loudmouth. And people go, oh, yeah, you know, I want to listen because he's interesting. But the problem is he's not smart. You heard him at the beginning. He goes, the trust factor. Those were the first words he said. The trust factor. You're going to talk about trust. You're going to talk about trust. You. We're just coming off the scandal where it was proven that you told 4 or 5 gigantic lies. You know, I was in Ireland and I saw people blowing up their fellow citizens. I was there for the war. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Later on, we found out he wasn't there during the war. He went there after the war. And he's changed his story from I saw people getting blown up with bombs to I saw pictures of people getting blown up with bombs. I'm not kidding. That's the argument. And he used the same fucking argument with the nuns in El Salvador. He said multiple times, I saw nuns get shot in the head. I saw it in El Salvador. I was there during the war. Well, again, he came there. The incident happened in December 1980. He went in 1981. And he changed it to, I saw pictures of the nuns getting shot. Oh, you're so sad. And then the JFK one. I was about to knock on the door and a CIA person committed suicide because we were hot onto him and we were going to find out his Oswald connection. He said I was on the fucking doorstep knocking. Coming to find out he was in Dallas. The guy killed himself in Florida. O'Reilly was in Dallas. There's evidence, not just evidence, proof of O'Reilly making a phone call to his buddy who was also involved in this asking, did the guy kill himself? Why would you have to ask if you were there? Because you weren't there. You're a fucking liar. I was in the Falklands. I covered the war. You weren't in the Falklands. You were 1,000 miles away. And when you did do anything involving that story, it was again after the war. You saw a protest or a riot and pretended like it was a war zone. You said the cops used live rounds. They weren't live rounds. It was tear gas. Specifically what you said they didn't use. You said you saw people die. You didn't see anybody die because nobody died. The guy is a liar, and he has the nerve, he has the balls to go out there and talk about President Obama and the trust factor. Please spare me, man. And by the way, even that's objectively untrue. Nobody trusts President Obama anymore. Nobody likes him anymore. Okay, notice how he didn't cite any polls. Now, why didn't he do that? Because the polls disprove his case. President Obama's approval rating is 48% right now. 48%? At this point in his presidency, that's way above the historical average at this point in any president's presidency. They're usually by now everybody's sick of them and they say, I don't like him no matter what, right? But for Obama, it's much higher. It's much above the average for this time. I mean, Bush around this time was in 30-something%. So dismiss him, man. Dismiss him. He's showing you something about not just the ultra-conservative ideology here, but he's also showing you a lot about him personally, about what he's really like and what his true character is. And across the board, when you're talking about Bill O'Reilly, it's ugly.